Well, we're going to make a big shift in the talk. So far, I was talking about the natural processes. And I was explaining, Ezequiel, that I am a process person. I like processes. And that's the kind of things I try to work out and try to understand the environment through the processes, especially trying to predict the future of these processes. And so far, everything I talked to you was considering the natural environment. But as Stefan explained you, and probably many others explained to you before and in the next week, there is something also natural, which is us. We are the natural part of the world, which is actually modifying the real natural world. So maybe you don't have any sense, but actually it's what is happening. So we are kind of an invasive species in a natural world, and we are trying to bioengineer the world in our needs. So I would try to bring the social part, the people, into this equation that we were discussing. Right? And before doing that, I just want to present you what are the three things I see the science, how science works. You see, this is typically the classic view of science, in the sense the science. It will come. Yeah. You see, it's the scientists in the Marfield Tower over there discussing everything among them, no, and basically not paying attention to the people. So everything is connected, and well, when we have something interesting, maybe we publish, ask to somebody in the newspaper to show what brilliant we are in providing new stuff. And the funny thing is, whenever we write a proposal, in the one part of the proposal we said how important is our research to the people, but we never tell the people. So that's a way to see science. Most of the people, for many years, have considered science to be this. Well, there's another way to do science. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm up here telling you how good I am. Yes, I'm perfect. So I'm just providing you a lot of information, and I don't care if you really understand me or if you, but I'm showing off. You see, that's another kind of science. That's the one who comes in the newspapers. Maybe you have a program about the Discovery Channel or the Nat Geo, something like that, in which you show some kind of things. Have you seen that there is no documental that doesn't have an animal? All documentary has animals. You see, it's like there is no other natural environment that doesn't have animals. Just pay attention to that. You see, nobody does a documentary about a wave. Maybe it's boring. Believe me, it's extremely funny to look at waves. It's part of my hobby, just sit down and look waves. Then now is what I think science is, and what's the type of science we are doing now. It's like that. Is we go to a place and we sit with the people. You see, and we bring mate to these places. And we sit with the people over there. And maybe we make some, how do you call, starting questions to the people. And what we do is listen. We don't talk to them. We listen to them. What we do is just try to find out what are their problems. Because what we think are their problems, or maybe a manager think is their problem, maybe most surely is not what is actually their problem. So one of the important things is to understand what are their problems. Then the other thing which is important to get with them is what they think the solutions are for those problems. Because most likely the solution that comes from wherever God is attending today, for example, in the case of Argentina, is in Buenos Aires. God is everywhere, but his office is in Buenos Aires, no? And then magically, as a miracle, sends you the solution to the place, and the people didn't understand the solution at all. Doesn't have any idea. Didn't have idea that somebody was thinking a solution for them. Because nobody went to ask them what were the problems or what were the solutions they wanted. So what we are trying to do is developing an idea, is try to get together what we call the stakeholders. All of us are stakeholders, and the decision makers, which are the part of the stakeholders to make decisions, that makes decisions, to sit down together and try to develop together potential solutions to their problem, and then build up the solution and move up the solutions towards the people who has to develop the solution further, to bring with some kind of construction or do some kind of managing, that kind of. So what's the big difference? In the sense, the big difference we see is that people, local people, hates to get a solution coming from somewhere else without being part of that. But another thing is, if you build up the solution with the people, then they are empowered the solution. The solution is theirs. And they will keep track of the solution, will take care of whatever that solution is. So, because otherwise, if I don't like the solution, and the solution comes to me from somewhere else, I will, if I had to take care of something, I will not pay attention to that. And then the solution will be worse than the problem. Because once I modify a place, the system will no longer be in the kind of equilibrium that I have in that moment. And it will change the equilibrium. If it changes the equilibrium, my conditions will change. So this is the kind of things that is very important. So maybe another take-home or whatever advice I can do or whatever thing you get from me today is do not work alone. Work with the people. Your research, in the end, for as complex as can be, if you are working on a quasar 10,000 light years ago away, is also important for somebody, probably less important, but it's also as important as somebody who lives on a beach. And somebody, as I was talking with Ezequiel, and somebody is building a complex or a building on top of a dune. And if they don't understand that destroying a dune in a beach actually is eroding the beach, because the dune is the storage, sun storage of the beach. If I destroy the dunes, I destroy the beach. So what is the basic problem here is if I build a building on a beach, on a town near the beach, it's because people want to go to the beach. So it's because of tourism and like the environment. If I build a building with nice windows to the sea, that kind of things, so only a few people, the ones that are going to be on those windows looking at the sea, are going to enjoy the quality of the environment. But the rest of the people are going to suffer the problem that the beach is retreating. And when sea level rise, the beach, which is also a buffer of our system, like the wetlands, will no longer be a buffer. And then we are going to have problems in which you see in many coasts of the world, you get buildings being thrown down because of hurricanes or storms or everything. It's because we didn't take care of the dune. So that's the kind of thing. So the research has to be, in my point of view, of course, I can be mistaken, but I think that's the way we move ahead. And I learned this 10, 15 years ago. It's not that I came from the university having the idea that people was very important in my research. I was the people that taught me on the first slide. Those things is working with social science that allowed me to understand this kind of concept. See, be sure that you have somebody that you work in an environment that is not only your peers in your own specialty. Try to find somebody that wants some social science, an economist. We work with a lot with economists that like to do environmental economy or sociology, environmental sociology, for example. Those kind of things are really important. And for those that are doing that kind of thing, there's a lot of money on that, because there are few people and they really charge a lot to do consulting. But anyway.
But hard science, that these people from social science, they do just blah, blah, blah.
Many do that. That's the point. They really are good ones too. Not only bad ones.
No, I come from the social science.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but you have to find the real ones. It's important, but you have to be conscious enough, and really you have to teach the social science people too, to understand that the environment requires some kind of knowledge. One of the problems we have at the beginning of this is to find a common language. Because that's a major problem that you're going to have trying to work, those that you are natural scientists and those that are social science, to try to get together and try to be open enough to understand each other. And you have to really be patient, because if you don't do that, you get in trouble, no? But people have to be really open. If you don't work with people that is open, it's gonna fail. So that's one message I wanted to give you today. Maybe it's probably the most important thing I want to show you. Then, what we are really working is in socio-ecological systems. In the sense, it's not that we are in an ecology. The social part, the human, is part of the system. And we cannot forget about them. Those people are modifying the system much faster than the natural processes occurring over there. So those kind of things have to be taken in care, especially because that is a variable that is very difficult to quantify. Because it can go depending on changes in the economy, changes in the politics of a country, of a town, those kind of things, that sometimes is unpredictable. Because you don't know who is going to win the election next year. And probably the guy who's going to win the election will change completely the philosophy and the politics that it was happening in the last 4 or 5 years ago. So those kind of changes completely difficult to predict. So future is very difficult. Then that's the kind of things that we are considering. And also, there's another point that we have to understand is how resilient is an environment. See? And you have 3 graphs here, which shows you this concept. For example, if I give to an environment some kind of external forcing, like, for example, let's say, I have a storm, no, hitting a wetland. How the system will behave after the storm, or depending how intense was the storm. It's a simple rainfall, or it was a hurricane. So that will be the intensity of the external forcing. But the point is, especially in those cases in which the external forcing is relatively fast, like a hurricane, for example, could be very strong, but short in time, the system will have to return to the previous condition, or whatever thing will be the previous condition. See, every system will try to go back to equilibrium, whatever equilibrium is. There's no system that's in equilibrium, but probably the system wants to return to some kind of equilibrium between these processes. For example, what I was telling you, the energy of the continent versus the energy of the sea. The fighting between them try to get some kind of equilibrium. Then, for instance, the system can go back to the same place before the forcing, but for the same road. Or it can come through a different road. For example, it goes this way and then will come through a different way. So just the system is not the same, because there have been some changes in the system that didn't really actually require changes in the conditions. The system will try to go back to the equilibrium, the original equilibrium, but not necessarily through the same path, and some changes occur on that system, which might affect or not the people living there or whatever happens over there. But there is another situation, which is the worst situation, which is normally what is really happening in most of our socio-ecological system, is the system in which I cross some kind of threshold in which the system cannot get back. So this is the kind of this is the original one. That's the way the system goes. But when I cross some kind of the condition, the system cannot recuperate, and we enter in a complete new, different type of equilibrium, in which the system has to be accustomed to that condition, because it's completely new, and the rules that apply before no longer apply now. Then, so imagine now that this is the system, and the natural environment try to adapt to those kind of changes. For them, it's part of the natural process, like the meteorite. Even though the dinosaurs were already being quite ill, that the meteorite just give the final shot. But it make a complete change to the condition. What happens if a meteorite comes now? So, well, maybe some mammifers or reptiles will take over, because we are not going longer to be here. It does completely change. That's a threshold that is going to change completely the ecology of the system. And somebody will adapt to these new situations, and will change completely the conditions. So that's the kind of thing. So when we are working with socio-ecological systems, one of the questions we have to ask is, what are the thresholds that we are able to predict or find that is going to be producing those changes? How resilient is the system? Because everybody thinks about evolution, but very little people think about the resilient part. In the sense, because the ecosystem is not a fixed stuff. It's not I'm going to take a picture and have a nice view of the Paramo I showed you before, but this is a movie. And who comes when the bad guy comes in the movie and take the girl out, and we have to find out how to save the girl, or the man. We can do that both ways. No? Now have so many heroines, women, no? But anyway, the point is, as a scientist working on this environment, we have to find where is the threshold, how we can really define it, and how we can find ways to avoid that threshold. But we cannot do that without the people living in that environment. Because most of the changes that might occur in that environment, it occur because of the people living there making something that will change the environment, the conditions. And they probably will pass the threshold, and that place will never get back. So that's the kind of things in the way we are working with the people over there. No? Is it clear? Do you have any questions about this? What? Say again. Strong. For example, what I was telling you, about you have a building a house on a dune. You eliminate a dune, and the beach will never go back to the system because there is a complete cycle in the sediment behavior on a beach that involves the presence of the dune. If I take out the dune because I build a beautiful building, that beach do not have any storage. And then what happens is the result is that the beach is going to start to erode, even though you don't see it. Because in the case of a beach, what actually is a beach? Do you have any idea what is the definition of a beach? Okay. Yeah, but that's not the reality. The beach is not a coast. One thing is, the beach is not a coast. It's part of the coast, but it's not a coast. The beach is an accumulation of sediment, which isn't the coast. And what happened is the buffer is actually the sediment. And how I move the sediment from one place to another is actually what is the matrix. It's like a matrix. So what we call the jam in the sandwich. No? Depends how much ham I will put, the sandwich will be better. No? Well, the sediment in the beach, when more sediment I have in the beach, more easy for the beach is to adapt to the changes. Because it's changing, as I said you before, it's changing every second. If I take sediment out of the system, is the capability to modify itself to adapt to the new conditions is being reduced. So that's a kind of example. That's okay? So if I destroy the dunes, I cross the threshold, and the system cannot be resilient. I have to adapt to the new conditions. That's clear? Any other doubt? Well, another thing is, what nature means for you? Because that's the kind of things that you really have to understand sometimes. It's a place to look. I go to the landscape. You see? One thing I learned from being a geologist, even though I'm not a classic geologist at all, is when I go to see a place, I enjoy the beautiful landscape, but also I know how it got like that. I can know the history of that place. So it's a complete different way to see a place, because you really understand how the beauty can be, because of all these processes that occur before to reach that beauty. So it's an interesting thing. I imagine a biologist or an ecologist can do the same thing much better than myself in understanding how the plants are there or the animals are there because of certain conditions. And so you can appreciate nature in a different way. But nature actually is a complete set of things that are integrated into this landscape I'm going to see. See? But from the point of view of the social science, especially what the economists do, is trying the difference, these concepts between ecosystem services and what is being called the intrinsic value of an ecosystem. See? When you look on the literature on you probably the 90% of the science related to the economics with ecosystems is based on ecosystem service and estimating the ecosystem service. That means is I don't care what happened with the system, with the ecosystem. What I care is how much is providing to me, to the human, the ecosystem. And I put dollars, numbers, to the value of that ecosystem. So I don't care, so it doesn't matter if it's I use the same thing, the same criteria for a beach, for a wetland, or for a paramo, whatever you think. Is how much it values to me. What is the value I have for the human? Whereas I like and you look in the ecosystem service regarding what are the benefits that they provide me, and that's the type of benefits. The provision, for example, they provide you water, food, good, whatever is the ecosystem, or they provide some regulation. For example, if we destroy the Amazonian the forest, we are going to really have a problems with the climate. We already have, of course, but if we destroy even more, the climate will be worse. So keeping it is providing us a system, a service. So that's a kind of regulation. It's supporting, for example, the mangroves. The mangroves are not only good to save us from a tsunami, but also are the basic place where most of even the commercial fisheries it starts. For example, it's a place where they hatch or they reproduce, and they get all the organic matter over there, the nutrients, and when they grow up enough, they move out into the sea, for example. So that's a service. So it's not only because the nice mangroves or not. It's because it's providing me a service, and that, in the end, I can put an economic number over there. I can tell you how many dollars are their worth. Yeah? Or also cultural. Yeah? Cultural means aesthetic things. That's tourism, in a sense. And how many people per year go to a place to visit that place just to take pictures and show them home or Facebook is also economically valued. You can really value those kind of things. The economists will be much better than me at doing this. I'm really new at these kind of things. So we measure the ecosystem value for the people, not because of the ecosystem itself. Whereas I think more interesting is in the ecosystem by itself. What's the intrinsic value of the ecosystem? How much this ecosystem is worth for itself. In the sense, I don't care about the people around me, but how the energy systems working inside of the ecosystem are value for its own ecosystem. Because if I don't have the bird that brings the seed from one plant to another, is no longer there, I'm losing part of the value of the system. And that is not important for the people, it's important for the ecosystem itself. You see, the economists are really hating me. Okay, so is what I call, I try to work out this idea. This is the first time I said this in public. Is I'm talking about this concept of inner value. But it's not only the intrinsic value; it's the inner value. It's how much the ecosystem really is valid for himself, no? And is what is valuable for its own sake, and there is no relation with the value that I have for somebody else. It's only for the system, and that is important because if we had to think about these thresholds we have to cross, is the intrinsic, is the inner value that has to be accounted to define what is the real threshold I have to pass. Because if maybe I will cross a threshold that the people will not see it, but the system will see it. So that's the difference between considering ecosystem services versus the inner value of the system. Because that's something that maybe we can see 10 or 15 or 100 years in the future. But the system is changing right now. But this is a paper we wrote in Science some years ago, in which we calculated the values of ecosystem services para different species in different places, dunes, wetlands, etc. For example, and this that's the estimating value of the mangroves, for example, for the changing in the mangroves conditions in the coastal areas, especially in Southeast Asia, produce different ways. In one of the results we got from these results were that what I told you, keeping the mangroves was much more economically feasible and better for the community than taking out and starting doing shrimp aquaculture or using the mangrove for good or that kind of things. But economically, the ecosystem service of the mangrove by itself was much larger than the economic system that everything we did in those places. So that was one of the results of this paper. And then you have the human dimension. This is the Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta in Colombia, which is a nice place, but extremely polluted. Tremendous. People living in palafitos, which is these houses in the middle, like islands in the middle of the lake. It's a coastal lagoon over there. And, of course, they don't have no service at all. So these are the guys that have to make their necessities directly into the environment. Because there's no, and they take the water from there. So that's the kind of things. So you imagine the kind of thing that these people live over there, and they fish over there, they work over there, they do everything, and you see there are 8,000 people living over there. No? That's the kind of islands that you can see. Sorry. Oh, surprise. Kill me surprise. And then other issues. What's the problems over there? See, there's overfishing. You have all the contaminations, the dredging. They do those kind of things. You see, human intervention on these places are crossing thresholds all the time. Every day are crossing a threshold which do not allow me to get back to the original equilibrium. So that's the kind of things that we have to take care of. And what is the problem over there? The problem is not that the people over there does not understand what they are living, what is happening, is that we have a serious problem of education. To me, the worst problem we have is education. We are, even though all the schools have a program for the nature and those kind of things, the children actually are not really understanding how to keep the environment, keep the place. So we actually have to change completely the education system just to say the things that Stefan was saying today. Because probably he didn't mention, I don't remember exactly, but he didn't mention in any moment the problem of education. Because if you, and education, you can have in a well-developed country, educated people that will throw the waste in the right basket, but most of the people don't even know how to read the name of the basket, where to put to make the how do you call the exchange, the separation of the garbage. So the problem starts there. So, and that's the way. That's what I think is the important role we have, because we are more educated people. That doesn't mean that we are better. We are more educated. We have the chance in our life to have an education. Well, our obligation in life is to try to help those that didn't have the same luck that we have. And our research has to be directed to these people. Try to help them to be in a better condition, because otherwise, even if we do it for our own egoism, if we want to get that better in the future, we better get the most of the people to be better, because they will help us also to survive. That's the point. Well, how we understand? We have a big project funded by III, who is paying for most of you here, in which is, the project is called SAFER. And it's based on these things: the freshwater ecosystems, yes, just the natural part, the socioeconomics, trying to figure out what is the economic conditions and the scene, but also understanding the culture. For example, we work with natives in Mexico and trying to understand how they really understand the world, because they work in managing forests. And they have what I think is the real communism. They don't have money. The jobs are in a yearly basis. One day I am the policeman. 1 year I am the manager of the aserradero. I don't know the how do you call it? ¿Cómo se llama aserradero? The sawmill. The sawmill. Or the other day is the guy who take the garbage. And they exchange services. They don't have money in the system, and they have a complete different culture. We work with the black community in the Dagua and the Colima rivers in Colombia, for example, and they're completely different kind of people. They have their own concepts. They have a complete different culture. They even have their own scientists. And they do not allow anything that the government decides without their own consent. If I want to make a highway through the place, they will decide if the highway is being done or not. And they will ask for compensation. What are the compensation? They were building a highway between Cali and Buenaventura, and what are the compensation? The company building the highway had to build schools. Has something like 6-7 schools in the community built by the highway company. So that's the kind of thing. So you have a cultural concept. It's completely different if you work with people in a city. Which have completely different way to think than people that works in the field. So the cultural concept has to be a major issue. You cannot go a place, because that's the kind of things we confronted. You cannot go to a place without understanding the culture of the place. If I had to take a mate from some place, well, even though the conditions are terrible, I will take it anyway, because it's going to be an offense for them if I don't take the mate that they give you with their best desire. And I had to think about what are the words I had to use, not to offend their sensitivity. Those are the kind of things that how the way you approach people in this kind of type of work. Yeah? Well, no sé. Okay. And everything under the umbrella of we work with climate variability, no climate change. Because climate change for me is a long-term process. If I want to work in 5 years, I will not see climate change. I'm going to see climate variability. So there are completely things, there are two completely different things. So I'm trying to understand climatic variability in the time I can work in this project. Yeah. Well, and that's the way we understand the system. In the sense we are all together, stakeholders, scientists, decision makers, trying to build the solutions together. I'll give you an example. For example, this is from the Senguer River in the south of Argentina. So we have a lot of data over there. Yeah. So we can produce results. See, for example, the evolution of the lakes in this area. These are the only two lakes in the middle of the Patagonia, in the central part of the Patagonia, with a complete arid area, less than 200 millimeters per year. And how this, for example, these are two different lakes. This is a very deep lake, and this is a shallow lake. And look how the Colegua Peak, which is this one, has changed in the last 15 years. We went from 800 square kilometers to less than 100. Because of changes both in the climate, but also because of the human activities that modify the conditions of the river, and eliminate. And then what happens? We can show this the relationship with, for example, with the ENSO system or the Antarctic Oscillation, which are the two ones that are affecting this area. But for us, this is the important thing: sitting with the people, because they are giving us data that this doesn't show in the hydrological register. They told us, well, this guy made this channel that wasn't before, and he took water from here and sent it to that place, and then I don't have water in my house, so I cannot cultivate this. Those are the kind of things, that information that, okay, this is a two-way system. So I go over there, try to help them, but also I have data from them. So this is a kind of exchange thing. So I sit down, this is my students that are doing this and working in this concept. And what happens? So what we do is trying to map using mostly participatory type of approach with the people. So we try to map the people about what they are in the system. For example, if they are users of the ecosystem service, they are providing things to the ecosystem service, they made regulations, mostly these people are the decision makers, so how these people affect the ecosystem. They are beneficiaries, or they are affected, beneficiaries, or influencers of the system. Those are the kind of things you need to map to understand who is around that place. Because what we think is, we take a lake, for example. A lake is part of a basin. Yes? Then what we try to understand is how this basin, this lake, is influencing the people living around there, and on the other way around, how these people is influencing the lake. And that is a two-way interaction that we need to understand. And it's not a simple thing to do. So that's the kind of meetings that we have, in which having somebody standing up doesn't mean is giving a lecture. It's probably helping to develop an idea, how to work, or just presenting the results of a working group. So that's the kind of thing. So we sit down and try to hear the people, understand the people, what they do. And so we use participatory research approach. It's a method developed by Elaine Ostrom, which is a Nobel Prize. And even they have a journal on her name. So it's a kind of there are different types. This is for us the easier one for us to work. But you need to have some sociologists or anthropologists to help you to do this. We cannot be, as a natural scientist, go over there and sit down with the people, because it's going to be a failure. You have to have somebody who understands the social concepts in how to help you develop the interaction with the people. Because probably we don't know, especially when they are large cultural barriers. Even how to approach the people, how to reach a place. How you really go over there. What is your attitude as a person to go to a place where the difference, cultural difference are very large? Well, sometimes we work with representatives. For example, happens once in a project, probably I will show you later, in which that's the Sauce Grande River Basin. It's a basin close to where we are, and one of the major problems is that the dam in the system is the one who provides the water for my city, but my city is not in the basin. So we are users of the basin, but the basin is a provider, and the city doesn't care what happened with the basin. The only thing it cares is how much water they will provide me. But this dam is a serious problem because it has during the low rain periods it becomes affected by blooms of cyanobacteria. And so then the problem becomes in the city when you have to filter those cyanobacteria and those kind of things, and we have really tremendous problems in the water. Now we have something like 5 years of rains, perfect, beautiful, nobody cares. But in the next La Nina, strong La Nina, we're going to have the problem back again. And we didn't do anything to solve the problem. But what happens in this place? This place, for example, the stakeholders and the decision makers will not sit together ever because they will kill each other. Believe me, at that level, they were hating each other. So there's a really tremendous problem. So we normally were accustomed to go to a place and try invite decision makers, invite the stakeholders, and sit down together and work with them together. No, what we had to do, the strategy was sit down with the stakeholders alone and work with them. Then go and make another meeting only with the decision makers and work with them. And then in each of the meetings, ask them, what happens if we invite you both and stay together in the same place? And after all the meeting and those kind of things, all the food we provided, because we go and provide sandwich and cakes and coffee and that kind of thing, because they do not come free, no? If you don't go with that kind of things, it's very difficult to bring people back to these meetings. And then, so you have to have some funds for that also. And, well, they decided to come together. And we were able, for the first time in many years, to sit down both parts without killing each other. We were able to discuss the things. I don't know if you got good solutions or not. But at least they were able to start talking to each other. So that's for us, was like we hit the moon with this kind of solution. Because that's something basically impossible for anybody to do. See? So this part of these meetings that we have. Then, for example, let me show you some examples of results. For example, this is a study we did. I don't know what happened, but something happened. A study we did with a similar idea in a coastal environment, like in Montermoso and Pehuenco, which is a couple of beaches close where we are. For example, in this place, you see there is a community, a couple of communities, one in Pehuenco, one in Montermoso, of fishermen, artisanal fishermen. They didn't talk to each other, even though they are 25 kilometers apart. Well, part of our project was to try to bring them together. So we were able to do that. finally, and try to build a community. Because that's a concept, for example, in many Latin American countries, there is a concept of community management. O sea, that people of the community managing the resources. Like I was explaining you, these Mexican natives or the black community in Colombia, they were managing their own resources. In Argentina, it doesn't happen, that kind of thing. And that's most a European philosophy. Is it time? Okay. Let me, it's going to be a stop now. I will continue in the afternoon. Maybe we have some time for a quick question right now. I don't know. You think so? Yeah. And then we go back to this in the afternoon.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Okay. Do you have a question? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor, for the presentation. You talked about the... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The science policy communication and research for people, stakeholder, and part of lecture, you shared some ethical and moral issues. Yes, I think that every scientist should have social responsibility. My question is quite different. I think you are the best fit for this answering this question. So, Professor, what is the most important virtue of a scientist?
Can you say the last part? I couldn't understand very
What
well.
is the most important virtue of a scientist?
In this thing?
Oh, no, it's a quite different question.
I don't know if I understood you really right. Sorry, because I did not follow you exactly what is the question.
Oh, yeah. Important virtue of a scientist should have.
The important part, we are between the social science and the natural science into this round table, if you call it like way, the circle, is to help people to help them to go towards the solution.
Oh, yeah.
In the sense, providing them in this talk our insight about what are the problems, what are the potential solutions. Maybe our solutions are not the ones they really are appropriate for that place, but we can work out a solution together, putting our intelligence together.
Yeah.
That's the important part of the scientist. The scientist is, I don't say is leading the meeting, but is trying to conduct the meeting towards the solution.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Yeah. Here. Acá tienes una pregunta. Here you have a question.
Me?
Oh, here. Okay.
About deforestation of mangroves, once I was in the Ciénaga of Caimanera, who is in Toluco Beñas, and I talked with the people who lives there, and I know that people who lives in Palafitos know or has the conscience to take care of mangroves. Yeah. But in that case of Ciénaga, just for say, the main problem of deforestation came from the government, who makes a road between Barranquilla and Santa Marta, and that road destroyed the connection between the sea and the river, and that makes a lot of deforestation. And two about the agriculture, who is deforesting mangroves to plants.
That's a problem. But the point is, you cannot kill progress within quotes. But the progress has to be well managed. We can clear mangroves for doing something, but we can do it intelligently. In the sense, probably I don't know anything about mangroves. I'm not working in mangroves at all. But I completely sure that the people who works in mangroves can have very well clear how to take part of the mangroves without killing the system. That's the point. That's the point. Is in any solution, the decision makers has to be there, because if they are not there, it's like nothing. So we have to really get those people involved. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, Professor. Thank you for your presentation. I want to ask you if you think it will be a good idea to involve people like in the scientific part of the process. I have an example, like I've seen a conference of an engineer who studied like the inundation in the south part of Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
And he used like he asked people to put like photography of their street with inundation, like for example on Facebook, and then they like analyze the images, like involving people in the measures directly.
Well, that is what is called citizen science, or collaborative science. Is in the sense now we are going to put a new project for III whenever it comes out, in which we are going to involve. That's something that we didn't know when we were doing this project. We are going to involve the stakeholders in writing the project, not only to do us for the project, but we are going to pick up the stakeholders we know and bring them to the table and help us writing the proposal. So they will be involved not only in doing the work we do, but also they're going to be part of the decision what we do, what type of research we're going to do. So that's the kind of science or collaborative science that we can do, and that's the kind of thing we can really think in the future how we work in our projects. I think that we are close with the time, but we can keep going in the afternoon. Okay, thank you. Now let's keep our